Welcome to the Weather Insights podcast. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney, along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner and meteorologist Jeff Evans, our good friend Jeff Evans down at the National Weather Service. How's it going, guys?
You're really our only friend, you know.
Well, that's true, but we don't have to give all the dirty details, do we? What's going on, guys?
Nothing. Just enjoying this mild weather.
This is not nice.
Except for this morning.
Houston winter at its finest.
Well, this was the week we were all supposed to freeze to death again, remember?
Yes, that's why we don't.
Oh, yeah.
Week 3 of February.
We don't look at a 360-hour forecast from a single model and put them on Facebook or social media.
Well, what about that first Arctic blast? Now, I mean, there was a little bit of accuracy in the long range with that one, right?
Yeah, no doubt. That one was identified pretty far out and verified pretty well with the forecast. Third win in a row.
How do you feel, Mr. Deterministic Model Hater?
I thought the forecast couldn't have been better. I thought if it was any better, I just don't know what we would have done.
Yeah, those are the ones that you can identify and hit out of the ballpark. So
and boy, did we!
And did we
hit it?
But nobody listened to us.
Well, so that's a whole nother topic.
And everybody thought if it had to be Uri or whatever the February 2021.
It had to be February 21, and if it's not February, and I just hope if we haven't learned anything out of the last cold snap, I mean, yes, it was Arctic air and all that, but maybe finally we can kind of put the power.
Oh my God,
the power scare every time it gets cold here a little bit to rest. Like I get ERCOT still has some work to do, and I get all that, but every time we get down into the teens or whatever here, we're not going to lose the power grid.
So this last January and then right before prior Christmas, we had a very similar blast, if you remember, there in the 22nd, 23rd of 2022. And so much of the conversation was wasted once again on power. And honestly, like Jeff and I, we can't answer these questions. We can't. But we would get asked all the time, what's the power going to do? Is center point on? Can center point answer? And neither of those two events was there any power issue at all. As a matter of fact, I think his last event, there was some demand records set in the state, and ERCOT was able to meet it without issue. And I think when you look back at the 21 event, it was a little bit of a perfect storm because we had such a mild winter up to that point, and they had plants that were offline. And so there was a lot on the production side that failed. It wasn't necessarily the grid or those things that failed. And ERCOT's apparently addressed that, and we've had enough heat for everybody, I guess, in the last couple of events.
I mean, I don't want to make it too rosy.
No,
because I'm a pessimist, but
it makes the show interesting too.
So I just think if you look at 21, there was several factors: the extreme cold, the production, the coal and natural gas plants being offline for
and the duration of that cold.
The duration, and you had ice across most of the state, which cut and clouds, which cut down your renewable. And unless you get that perfect set up again, which could happen. I mean, it can happen.
It's not going to happen this month.
It's not going to happen this month. It ain't going to happen this winter.
This year, but this center, we're done. Yeah.
But but we can get that set up again, and we could potentially be, but not every time it gets cold here is it going to be a power issue. If it is just cold and sunny and the wind's blowing, which is 85% of the time, we're going to be fine.
Right.
Good to know.
Right.
Yeah.
But they still expect you to know the grid. They want you to know if schools are going to be open or not.
Yes.
All these non-weather things.
Well, and let's talk about schools for a second, because
let's talk about
thank goodness this event happened on a holiday. This was MLK Day. And so when we started getting the freezing precipitation, school was out, because it actually started after like what we would have typically as the morning rush hour. Started about 7-8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And if we would have everybody went to work and school, we would have had an absolute nightmare because the roads were way worse in the afternoon.
It would have been Snowmageddon for the west half of Houston metro area.
Nightmare.
Yeah, I was out there. I was in Katy, and I got to the office about 7, and a little shower came through, and there was ice on my window, and sleep pellets and all kinds of stuff, and so we send everybody home. Like, well,
but that's the same, I think, issue we sort of had is the QPF was underdone in the models. I mean, we were thinking trace to maybe 500s,
right, and that's right.
And we got more than that. We got more close to a 10th, which is a big difference when you're talking about ice and also temperatures in the mid-20s.
And this was that kind of ice. So I went home, and I get to I-10, and it's the kind of ice you can't see. And I'm behind people just sliding on this stuff. They hit an overpass and they're fishtailing and stuff. And it was.
I mean, you knew better. What were you doing?
Well, I'm a meteorologist.
But going back to Jeff's point,
there is a way to drive on that stuff.
Jeff and I were texting through the event, and we kept saying, like, thank God schools were closed today. Thank God schools were closed today, because it was a holiday. A lot of people were home, and so the overall impact was mitigated a lot by people that were just planning to be home anyway.
Yeah.
And people seem to get the message on the cold. I saw a lot of people that were taking preparations. The interesting thing is a lot of the vulnerabilities that burst in the last couple of events seem to have been taken care of. We didn't seem to have the plumber calls and the water outages and all the major impacts. And a lot of that is because I think stuff that got replaced with better quality stuff in these last couple events. And of course, the duration this one wasn't as long either, but I think that helped as well.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but all new sprinkler heads and everything from 21. Do you have any issues?
I had no issues at all. No, I was very lazy on this one, to be honest with you. I was just slow to do what I needed to do. And I don't really think it was anything that I was just, I'm burned out on it. I'm done with cold.
Yeah. So I could have texted you. You'd probably answer my text.
Well, yeah.
I usually don't bother you during events.
Absolutely. Well, why not be like the other 300 people?
And it's another event where if you go back to that Saturday, it was the Texans playoff game at home. It was sunny. It was warm. It was beautiful out. People weren't even in the mindset of Arctic. And then by the time Sunday rolled around, we started getting the 40s and light rain, and people are like, I don't want to go out and cover plants in this. So,
well, yeah.
Plus, I got most of mine covered on that Saturday when it was sunny out and dry.
Yeah, I mean, it just literally goes from spring to winter here at this time of year. So people have their guard down sometimes. Yeah. So,
but going back to Jefferson about the schools, there's aspects of that we found out about school closing, and people don't understand is that some of the school closing decisions aren't just about slippery roads. So that Tuesday morning, there were decisions being driven by the wind chills in the low teens, and air temperatures in the mid teens. So I think those were the right decisions. We have a lot of people that don't have a lot of winter gear around here. We have a lot of kids that have to stand at bus stops. So those were the things people were talking about, kids that walk to school. And there was some pushback because Tuesday was clear and dry that they could have had school. But that's not what necessarily a lot of the decisions were being driven on by, during that morning. They had talked about some late starts and everything. And I think they just decided, especially because the part of the northern and western metro districts had some ice that Tuesday morning.
Don't you know they're just laughing at us up north?
Well, no, I don't know, because they just went through this last night up in the Northeast. They canceled all their schools yesterday, and talk about a forecast nightmare up there. They canceled school for an inch of snow in some of those places. Like the forecast changed dramatically yesterday, and there's been a lot of fallout up there. Boston and north of New York, up inland a little bit, because they all made the decision early because it was such a slam dunk lock for 2 days straight. We're going to get a foot of snow, and then Jeff. Now let's talk about that because I've kind of felt this winter the guidance hasn't been all that great, and I don't know if it's struggling with the El Nino pattern or what, but I just the couple of things we've had here, then you see what happened in the Northeast last night, this morning. It's kind of like it just hasn't been great.
I think it just highlights because some of these events, it doesn't take much difference to really change the impacts significantly. So, you look at these nor'easters, and if you go back and research them, the difference between that rain snow line is so finite. But it's 10 million people or 2 million people or it's a huge difference on when that rain snow line sets up. And models didn't nail it. You go back to our rain event after that Arctic event where the models were highlighting it out. We were pushing messaging on it, but then going into it, some of the models started pushing it up towards Longview and up in the Northeast Texas going into it like a day or two out. And we started thinking, wow, maybe we'll get a break. And then it just kind of started on its own, from Colorado County right through, the Brenham area and just northwest of Harris County. And next thing you know, bang, you get 8 inches of rain, just like that. And, there really weren't any of the models. We have lots of models we look at. None of them really just pegged that little location. We knew the potential was there, but we just don't know where that's going to fall. And 6 to 8 inches normally around here, people kind of shrug off a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you have nothing but dead vegetation, it's all pure runoff. That caught a lot of people off guard as well, and they didn't like, where's all this water coming from? We didn't get a foot of rain. It's like, well, no, this time of year you don't need a foot of rain.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that snow line set up south of Boston, like Hartford and area, somewhere around there. But it seems like a different modeling, right? Snow versus rain when you're looking for like what you were describing, Jeff.
I'm just glad we don't have
the banding effect.
We just don't have to do it down here very often because if I had to do that every week,
and see what we get mocked at as a profession is that we talk in terms of uncertainty and likelihood, and that these are the type of events that we have to speak that language with. You can't say it's a slam dunk that New York City is going to get a foot of snow 2 days out. You have to talk about, well, there's some things that could happen either way. You need to plan for that. But if this and this happens, then suddenly we get an inch of snow, and that's what happened.
I don't know if we, as a profession, do a very good job of that.
I don't know if anybody does. It's really difficult.
You need 20 minutes to go through it all, and you only got about a minute and a half.
Well, and people don't process that. They want to know. I just want to know, am I going to get A or B or not?
Yeah.
And it's like we can't tell you that for that kind of certainty. And the analogy I use is people who do invest in the stock market. You don't go to an investment person and they just guarantee everything. This is going to do this and this is going to do that. They're always talking about risk and what the probabilities of this could go up or this could go down, and then you have to make that decision with your money with a financial planner based on all these uncertainties. None of us can go back in time and say, yeah, I should have put everything in an Apple stock in 1992 and I'd been fine. That's just not how this works. Meteorology's messaging is fairly similar. We can't say for sure going into that last January rain event that this particular location in this particular county was going to get 8 inches of rain and this spot was going to get a 1/4 inch of rain. I mean, maybe someday we can, and I would like to be able to do that. I mean, so would Jeff and so would you, Scott. We'd all like to be right. We'd like to be able to just tell people exactly what's going to happen. But as a science, we're not there yet.
Yeah. And what do you think are the biggest factors missing? I mean, data collection, that's talked about a lot. You know, we're trying to get data from all these different resources, planes, satellites, what have you. But then you need computing power too.
Right. And a lot of it.
Right.
And then you need to be able to, what do you do with this? Because, you know, you could get 15 different models but what happens if you get 15 different solutions? You know, how are you going to message that? You know, we like to think, and I actually wrote a paper on this on the Super Tuesday outbreak it was actually the 16-year anniversary that came up here recently, a big tornado outbreak in the Mid-South. And I was the day shift lead at SPC and had to decide to issue a high risk or not. We identified it pretty well in the extended. When you just look back at just the pattern where the jets were lining up, the mid-level jet, the low-level jet, what the surface low was going to be, the dew points at the surface, all were hitting a tornado outbreak. But as it got closer and closer and all these high res guidance was coming in, a lot of them weren't breaking the cap. And so then you start losing confidence and thinking, oh no, did we hit this too hard? But I remember at that event, I just stepped back, looked at the overall pattern again, looked at the surface analysis, looked at the 12Z soundings and said, it's going to go, the cap's going to break. And we put a high risk out and it verified. But we have this perception that as you get closer in this forecast funnel, that it always just gets more clarity. And at some point you hit a point where you might go the other direction again, where it's clear, there's some clarity and then it starts going the other direction. Because as it gets nearer, it gets murkier. I don't know the answer solution to that. I mean, obviously more observations, better modeling, you know, all of that could lead to this being improved at some point. You know, artificial intelligence and machine learning, which we're just dabbling with. I think that might be a really important cog that we're just kind of in the elementary stages of.
Yeah. But, I mean, who would have thought that we are today, you know, 30 years ago, what we have today, we'd be where we are today with what we have. I think it's, for the most part, it's pretty impressive. I mean,
I mean, like the day 7 forecast is as good as a day 3 was when, like, you and I were coming out of high school.
Right.
Just in our lifetime, our careers, we've seen such a huge improvement in forecast accuracy. But that's over the mean. You still have these misses like today in the Northeast. You know, or the F3 tornado that was it last Wednesday in Wisconsin. You know, we still have struggled with those really high impact rare events. You know, pegging those several days out because we do worry about the cry wolf syndrome. We do worry about, we can't just say this every event. You should just go run and hide because people stop listening to us.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle. I mean, sometimes Jeff and our message when we're messaging partners is to relax. And sometimes we're trying to motivate action. So it's interesting at times.
It's weird. It's because there's sometimes when Jeff and I are like, why aren't people doing anything? Like they should be doing stuff, because we know how big weather events, there's a certain timeline and a certain level of expectation that we're used to seeing from emergency managers and our partners and stuff like that. And sometimes we're like, why aren't they doing anything? Where's it getting lost? Where's the message getting lost? And other times we're like, what the heck? Why are they doing? Why are they doing something?
Where's this energy coming from?
Where's this coming from? Because, and I've sort of started asking. I've sort of started asking people like, well, why are y'all doing this? Oh, well, and what I've heard, the kind of sort of common theme I've heard is, well, we just want to make sure that we're out ahead of it. And nobody has ever told me ever I was mad because it didn't happen. Now, people get mad when they don't think when they don't think it's going to happen and then something happens. So let's just say the 12 inches of rain, 8 to 10 inches of rain that fell northwest of Harris County. If that would have happened in Harris County, we had homes that flood, and that wasn't really forecasted, that would have been a problem. And so to some degree, the leaning forward, getting it out there and that kind of stuff can be helpful. I think people appreciate that more than being caught off guard, but it's a very fine line.
And when you're talking about your partners, you're talking about emergency managers, broadcast mets.
Yeah, everybody that's in the public safety sector, that we basically, our primary role is supporting those decisions, and Jeff could speak to this more than I could, but other big decisions that were made going into that rainfall event were a lot of these reservoirs and lakes releasing water or not, and that's a tough decision. We just came out of a huge drought. Water is a huge resource, and so these, they don't want to release this precious resource and dump it out in the Gulf, and then this rain event doesn't happen, and now we get into another drought through the spring, and they're like, we lost all our water. These are really, really difficult decisions that some of these folks are having to make, and we're trying to support it the best we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you look at, luckily for us here, everything we have is water supply lakes, right? So Livingston, Conroe,
Right.
Houston is all water supply. There's no flood control capabilities on any of these lakes. Somerville is a flood control, is a Corps of Engineers flood control lake. And of course, Addicks and Barker are purely flood control reservoirs. And so what I mean by that is because they're operated differently. And this is where we get into the big boo-hoo-hoo over Conroe all the time. They're operated differently. So water supply lakes and reservoirs are mandated to release water when they start to move into above their normal pool because they have no flood control capability. There's nowhere to store the water.
No.
And so at Conroe, their floodgates are about 6 inches above the pool of the lake on a normal day, which is 201. Okay, so when the lake starts filling with water, it goes to 201.1, 201.2. You're losing inches on that floodgate. And so you have to start raising the floodgate to keep that buffer because you never want water going over that floodgate. And so there's no choice. They have to raise those gates to let water out to maintain that 6 inch or so conveyance there. And so, people are like, well, they can't hold the water. They didn't let it out, or they let it out early, or this or that and everything else. And I'm like, it's different at Somerville, it's different at Lake Travis, it's different at Addicks Barker. The gates are closed. All the water is impounded. Upstream will be flooded.
Until they hit a certain pool level where they think they could lose the dam. Then they have to release it. They have to make those tough decisions.
Right. Which we've only had what happened once here, which was for Harvey on Addicks Barker. Travis has never had that happen. Travis has never ever had to go into their emergency spillway.
Really?
No. They have flooded homes on the upstream side of Travis, but they have never, because Lake Travis was built as A, water supply lake, and B, to protect Austin. And so you don't blow open your floodgates and flood downtown Austin because it defeats the purpose of why the thing was put in to begin with.
Yeah.
But if you look
flooding $1 million homes back here,
right?
And
but
they're
they
not
built
happy.
But they built in the flood
release
pool.
They know the risk.
The water. Why don't you release the water? You're flooding me.
That's the thing. They don't know the risk.
No.
People have. It's just like at Addicks Barker. People have built inside these flood pools of these lakes. And they have no clue that A, they're in the flood pool or the risk they face. And it's many times it's well above the 100-year floodplain.
Really?
Which is the regulatory floodplain.
That's not in the disclosures when they're buying the home.
If it is, it's deep into the little writing and people just sign it.
Yeah.
I think, and I think people just, their mind that, once every 100-year, once every 500, because that's the way they view a floodplain. No, it can happen anytime.
Because but that's the message we say, which was wrong. But we say it's a 1 in 500-year flood. So now we got 499 years before it's going to flood like this again. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Every year's different. It's a probability every year. We saw that with April 2016 and then with Harvey. And everyone's mocking these 1,000-year floodplains. Well, I mean, it's like, I mean, not to mock anything, but you like run snake eyes twice at the craps table. Each roll is independent.
Well, and that's a very good analogy. If you think about roulette or, rolling dice or whatever, and if anybody's gambled, you've seen it. The chance of you hitting red 7 back to back or 00 back to back is very, very low.
Yeah.
but it happens.
But it can happen because every spin is independent.
Right. If you stand there long enough, if you live here long enough, it will happen to you.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah. But it's all about communication, though. We know it as meteorologists because we've studied it, but to your average home buyer, they just kind of, oh, well, we just love the house. We don't care.
Well, and I'm so, we moved here in 2014, and I was down. I'm in northern Galveston County, the League City area, and so we were looking at homes, friends with League City, down towards Galveston Bay, along Clear Creek, and then there were homes we liked, but for me, I wasn't comfortable building or buying a house a quarter mile from Clear Creek. And my realtor's like, well, it's not in the floodplain. I'm like, yeah, but it's just right there. I mean, it's just right down the road.
Yeah.
And I know what Clear Creek can do. I knew what it did in Claudette, and I know what it did in Ike. But my realtor didn't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
That house had 4 feet of water in it during Harvey. And we liked the house, but I wasn't going to buy it there. But someone else did, because people don't know the risk. I didn't want to buy too far east of I-45 in League City, because if we had a Cat 4 hurricane, another 1900 storm, a lot of that's going to flood.
Yeah.
But a lot of people did, because it's not in the floodplain, and people don't understand that risk. And so, yeah, again, you're rolling the dice every year. You're rolling the dice, and you might come up fine every year, but eventually that 7's going to roll on the dice table, and you have to understand that. So people need to understand the risk and need to be prepared for that. I don't know what else to say on that.
I'm surprised that area you described, Jeff, wasn't in the floodplain, but you got to draw the line somewhere, I guess. And
but if you think about the actual chance of a 1% or 100-year storm surge elevation, which is 18 feet, after the new floodplains have come out post Katrina, our 100-year storm surge elevation here on the Upper Coast and Galveston Bay went from about 12 to 18 feet. The chance of you actually seeing 18 feet of water above the ground is very, very low. It may not even happen in your lifetime.
No.
But it will happen one day. It will happen one day.
That's crazy.
But think about that. Think about 18 feet. Think about how high 18 feet is. It's 4 or 5 feet over most one-story homes.
Yeah.
Over the top of the whole thing.
And Jeff and I saw that with Laura. We did the survey post Laura. We went over to find how deep the surge was. And the interesting thing is that's an area that had relatively recently felt those impacts with Ike, with Rita. So they knew their risk, and they all left, thankfully, because it got up there. It was 3 feet deep in the second floor of a home.
Right.
We made it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if that happens in Galveston Bay and you get 15 feet into, Seabrook or something, a lot of these folks, we have not seen that probably since the 1900 storm.
Right. We haven't seen it. I mean, Carla and Ike were about the same. Carla might have been a little bit higher here, and that was about 12, 13 feet.
And I will say Carla made landfall down near Rockport, so that was way down the coast.
That was a beast of a storm.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. And we still had that kind of surge in Galveston Bay.
But yeah, we haven't. And the 1900 storm, I mean, I don't know if there's actually any reliable surge data records of how high the water. I mean, there's a lot of it got to this high, but any actual hardcore.
Plus, Galveston was 7 or 8 feet above sea level at that time.
Right. Yeah, the seawall hadn't been built, and none of the. It was between Galveston Island and the downtown Houston was nothing. So all of this stuff that's been built along the bay didn't exist. So there's nothing to mark. It was just all marshy area. They just rolled in and rolled out. No one ever figured out how much it flooded.
But I mean, we have not seen 18 feet in Harris County. Maybe 1900, maybe. That's 124 years.
Yeah. I'm fine with not seeing that.
I mean, but I think people like, well, Ike had to be a 100-year storm. No, Ike was really like around a 25 or 50-year return interval event on storm surge.
I mean, Ike was technically a low in Cat 2 at landfall, but it was a weakening storm at landfall, and had lost a lot of its punch. We haven't seen an Ian, a Laura, or Harvey. These storms that are rapidly intensified. Michael, rapid intensification right as it made landfall. We haven't seen that here.
Yeah, but if Ike would have been, what do you think, 25 miles west of where it was?
Whole different story.
Yeah,
we would have been close to 20 feet in the bay.
Yeah.
Because we got about, I think we measured 17 or 18 feet over at Hyatt, just west of High Island. So it would have been close. There's a lot of factors that depend on it, but I think we would have been pretty close.
It's hypothetical, but there were some simulations that would have brought 20 feet into the bay.
In Alicia, that was a pretty quick moving storm. I think it didn't dump a lot of rain.
No, but it's still, I think, was it 12 feet? I think the surge, or 8 to 12. So it had a decent surge with it, even though it was small, formed right near land and moved in quickly. But that was a rapid intensifier.
Yeah. Yep. It just shows you how vulnerable the northwest part of Galveston Bay is to storm surge. It's very similar to the Mississippi, Southeast Louisiana coast, that concave shape, shallow water, lots of bays and rivers and inlets and bayous, and the water gets trapped there. And you're going to get, even in something like Alicia, which was not a big storm surge storm, you still got 10 to 12 feet at Baytown in the old Brownwood subdivision that's gone now.
Well, Jeff,
shows you.
Was it Beta? I think Beta that we saw, actually, our highest surge value was up in the ship channel.
Yeah, it was up at we found the highest value in the Brays Bayou at the mouth of Brays Bayou, and then also at the Lynchburg Ferry, right there where the ship channel and the San Jacinto River come together.
Right, of all the areas it could have been, it was right there.
Which is not surprising, because if you think back to Beta was a multi high tide storm, right? It was a prolonged storm. The tide cycle comes in. Every time that tide cycle comes in, it traps the water further in. So it traps it in the ship channel. It traps it in Clear Creek. It traps it in Clear Lake. And here comes the next high tide, and it traps another half a foot. And so anytime you get these big, either big hurricanes that push a lot of water ahead of them, or these prolonged fetch events where the wind just piles the water for 2 or 3 days, you're going to get these high tide. You're going to get these really high tide values that you don't really expect from a tropical storm. We saw the same thing with Francis back in '98. We had horrible beach erosion on Bolivar. That's where the whole Texas Land Act came in, and homes were condemned, and these sand socks failed, and all kinds of stuff came out of Francis back in '98. But I mean, we had 9 feet in the bay from Francis, which was a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm. But it just sat there and piled the water in for 3 days. Kind of like a nor'easter, I guess.
But in the South. So we're transitioning. Last year, this time, we were talking about El Nino versus sea surface temperatures. What say you for this year? Transitioning back to La Nina.
I'm just going to say, grab your ankles.
You got to
grab your ankles for 24's hurricane season. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it's flipping back to neutral, or perhaps a weak La Nina as we get in the hurricane season. These forecasts are going to be insane because the water temperatures are unbelievable.
I think we're going to come out the gate with 25.
They're going to really big numbers.
I think somebody might come out the gate with 30.
What did we come out with? Was it 14 or 15? Some low number that was raised like in the first 30 days or something.
Well, we saw that with 2017, right? I mean, the numbers are kind of average 2017. By the time we got into early August or late July, that it was accurate, but they ballooned big numbers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it looks like the Caribbean looks wet, and the Gulf looks wet, and so it seems almost like we go back to 2020. Where the African kind of wave train is suppressed to the south, and that gives you opportunities in the Caribbean and the Gulf. Unfortunately, a lot can change. El Nino is still strong. It's still a strong El Nino out there, and you're going to dissipate a lot of heat between now and I don't know. We'll see. If there's a wild card, it's probably that.
Yeah.
I don't think the Atlantic sea surface temperatures are going to change much, but the wild card is probably how quickly that El Nino fades.
Yeah. Took a while to get going, right? I mean,
it did, and that's not
November,
uncommon.
December. Yeah,
it's not uncommon. I mean, and, look at the the atmospheric river event in California that they just dealt with, and the classic El Nino. I mean, what we dealt with, the severe weather and tornadoes on Sunday, classic El Nino type of pattern. Going forward, these mild days, and then we get some rainy periods and one cold front, and it doesn't last. Classic El Nino type of pattern that we're in. That's the kind of spring we're in. It might be a pretty active spring for us, severe weather and flooding wise.
Yeah. Well, it's good we got some rain. We needed it.
Yeah, a little more than we needed for some areas.
Well, it's always the truth. I mean, you're going to have places that don't need it, they get more. But we're caught up, I think, overall.
Yes,
I haven't looked at the drought monitor in a while, but
I think we pulled ourselves out of drought for the first time in a long time.
But what's interesting is this El Nino has not helped areas in Central Texas and in West Texas. I mean, Travis is still down 40. It's only 41% of its capacity.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
I'm looking out the hill country still in D2 and D3.
Right, just kind of northwest of San Antonio there.
Yeah,
it's been that way for a while. And what about northern Louisiana? Because that's been pretty bad too.
I think Louisiana has had a lot more precipitation.
Yeah,
they've actually pulled out.
Okay,
they've actually pulled out. What's interesting is Toledo Bend is Toledo Bend's a massive water supply reservoir on the Sabine River, and that thing was down around Christmas, December. It was down 6 or 7 feet, which is just, that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking the capacity of that reservoir, that's a massive amount of water that's been lost.
It's huge.
And they finally I think they're actually releasing water on Toledo Bend now. So all the rains we've had in January have really, things can, things can flip on a dime down here. And it's just somewhat amazing. And the Rio Grande Plains in Central Texas, they've just been missed. Everything has been East Texas, east of I-35, nothing west of I-35 that's helped replenish any of those lakes out there. Same thing down in Corpus Christi. And if we do not get water in those lakes between now and May, we're going to be in a world of hurt this summer.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way that we can keep up with the water demand.
And that being said, in this kind of pattern, we could easily get an April system that dumps 12 inches of rain in Central Texas. So, it's don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Or with an active tropical season, that might give us some help too.
Travis can come up 40 feet in a night. So,
yeah, exactly.
You can, it all runs off out there. So if you just get the rain in the right spot, but it's amazing. Go ahead.
I'll say, God forbid we get another Memorial Night, the Wimberley and then a Memorial Night.
Right.
How fast that can happen. So
yeah,
2015.
Yep, that was a lot of rain. So, we've got the change of El Nino switching over. What other climate? Oh, I want to go back and ask you, you guys, when we were talking about winter, you guys ever use buff kit?
Yeah,
I've used it.
Yeah,
is it still mostly like a weather type? I got back into it when we had the icy condition, and I was just I messed around with it for about 20 minutes, and I hadn't used it since.
It's a sounding.
It's a sounding analysis software program.
Yeah, yep. But it's kind of more geared toward winter precipitation, is it not?
It can be, but it can also be used for severe.
Mm-hmm. It's SQT, but
it's just sounding analysis. So for winter, you can look at either forecast soundings or observed soundings to find out what your vertical profile is and whether that's be freezing rain, sleet, rain, and you can look at different severe weather parameters.
Yeah, still
it's just a PC based sounding analysis. We have some stuff we have our own internal sounding analysis that we use for upper air soundings, but it's still a useful program.
Is it okay? That was kind of my question. Is it still?
It's
you
still
know, kind of
viable.
available? Yeah. So, all
I
right,
got a
well,
question, Evans. We haven't talked about this. So, what is if you can answer, how you liking this new NHC cone?
I think so.
Inland,
Oh
more
yeah,
inland info.
but
I
the
think
cone
that
gets hidden. The
I
cone
think
gets
that their
hidden.
hand was forced on this a little bit because of too many people were still perceiving the cone as impacts or no impacts. So they kind of, we have a lot of, I mean, our tropical program as a National Weather Service is immense. We have a lot of products that go out ahead of a tropical cyclone as it makes landfall. So they're trying to be able to show all of that. I will say they're testing it, and an experimental phase, we'll see what the feedback is. But they're trying to get people to de-emphasize the cone of where the center is going to make landfall and focus more on where all the watches and warnings are, where the expected impacts could be. So it's a noble effort. We'll see how well it's received. The Hurricane Center has been trying to get rid of the cone for a long time, but they can't. It's like SPC still locked into slight, moderate, and high. These are terms that have been around for so long, they're having a hard time getting rid of. And NHC with the cone, it's the same thing. Scientifically, we could do more. Probabilistically, we can do more, but the public's used to it. The media likes it. The media's used to it. And so they know they're kind of stuck with it.
Yeah. Like pops, percentage of rain, chance.
Yeah,
It's gonna
pops,
be
another
around.
one,
Yeah, it's going to be around for a while because people are used to it. They take that information and they interpret what it means to them, and it works.
We do the same thing with max and min temperatures. Y'all on TV give a deterministic number.
Right.
It used to be when I was growing up, they gave a range. Highs in the mid 70s today, lows in the mid 30s. To be honest, that was a more honest and accurate forecast. But for some reason, somebody started a single number and it gave a perception of accuracy, and they would advertise, well, channel blah blah blah, we give the single number, so turn to us, we're better. So everyone started doing it. But a day 7 deterministic number of 31 for a low is not a good way of messaging that. It's just not.
And that's what
I look at the
most, right? The freeze line.
I look at the MBM, so it's a blend of models. I look at the box and whiskers every day. That's what I look at every morning. I like to see the spread of the models.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a big box, I know there's a lot of uncertainty. If it's a tight box, I know there's not much. And I know that temperature is most likely going to be within a few degrees of this number.
When is the Weather Service going to start issuing weather alert days?
Would you like us to, Jeff?
Why y'all laughing? This is a serious question right now.
Okay.
Every TV
Do you really want me to explain why I'm laughing?
This is a serious question, guys.
Right. Let's be serious then. Mr. Evans, our alert day is on the horizon for the National Weather Service. But that was funny. That was funny.
No, we probably will not do alert days.
Yeah.
So a bad weather day is just a Thursday.
It's just a Thursday.
According to the federal government, it's just a Thursday.
Or a blown forecast.
Yeah.
We'll do like a Homeland Security and just have yellow, green, red days or whatever. Just put it out to red day.
See, that was my
Well,
idea.
see,
that's what I pitched. I pitched colors. I like colors.
Don't get me started on colors right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Because everybody got a different color for everything.
Right.
Even the Weather Service got different colors between SPC and the local FOs on the tornado watch. It's red from SPC, and some offices it's yellow.
Yeah.
It should be red.
Actually, as a matter of fact, this weekend when the tornado watch was issued Sunday, it come out yellow for the county map.
Not well for the TV stations.
No, on the Twitter on
Oh, I have to go back and look.
Oh, absolutely, go look.
Yeah.
It came out. It's yellow.
So the other issue is, what impacts Scott on a given day is not what impacts me. And so if we get 3 inches of snow on a Sunday morning, and everyone's all happy and it's beautiful and they can sit in and have coffee and have the fireplace going. It's totally different that it happens on a Tuesday morning and everyone's right when they're trying to get to work and they're trying to get the kids to school. So, or worse yet, it comes at 3:30 in the afternoon when everyone's already been there all day long and now everyone has to get home. That's what they dealt with in Atlanta and what was that, 2012-ish, so there's a difference we know as an agency on when it happens. We talked about this last Arctic outbreak happening on a holiday that made it easier to mitigate impacts. So how do you work that into your weather alert day scales on things? It's just going to be different if you have to get out in it or you can sit home and look at the pretty snow. It's
Well, the way alert day was described to me, the definition is if the weather is going to disrupt your day. Well, on a windy day, it could blow my hat off. That's disruptive. So I struggle with it, but for my job, I gotta play the game and have something. But yeah, we've talked about this on the show a few times, weather alert days.
Well, they ain't going away.
No,
but
so what do you do with it? So let's say it's April or early May, and you have a thunderstorm, which we typically get. It's just going to be a 45-minute impact for the metropolitan area thunderstorm. Big difference at noon than between 4:15 and 5, or between 5:30 and 6:15. Huge difference. If anyone's ever been in traffic with a thunderstorm and moderate to heavy rain and everybody's going 10 miles an hour without accidents, versus again it happening at lunchtime. So how do you weather alert that?
You put it up there because it could be disruptive to.
But what again, you go back to that cry wolf syndrome where everyone's like, oh yeah, we get weather alert days all the time.
That was one of my that was one of my points. I use the analogy is like every time you turn on the news station, you see breaking news. Well, you only used to see that,
well, that was
20
a big
30
deal
years
when I was
ago.
growing up.
Yeah, when you saw breaking news, you stopped and went, what's going on? But now you see it all the time.
When it was ABC News, and they would break into programming with a breaking news story. Huge. I mean, we were like, oh my God, the president got shot or something. This is a big deal.
Right. So my question was, are we going there with alert days?
Yes.
Are we just
we are
putting them up there and people are going to be numb to it? And
now you'll have just a news station on. It'll be breaking news because there's a car chase.
Right.
You're going to 24-hour local news.
Yeah.
Because you're already on like 7 hours a day. And you're going to weather alert days every day.
By the definition I was given, yeah.
I mean, this was a legit question I got asked Sunday morning. I went and had breakfast with some folks Sunday morning, and one of the people goes, well, y'all have scared us all weekend. When is it going to rain? And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's, there's been all these colors on the TV and flashing stuff. And
well, don't blame me.
Well, but see, but 95% of people get their weather from either an app or the TV.
Or the app, yeah.
Which comes with lightning bolts and flying cows, and I don't know what's all on all this anymore, but it's a production now, right? It's a production. Like you turn on the TV, it's red, there's red colors, there's big words, there's lightning bolts. I mean, it's just not a white and blue screen with numbers.
It's two conflicting entities. You have a profit center, because that's what television stations are. They're a business. Right. And then you have science going, no. Yeah. That's not really what's going on. Here's what's really going on.
Well, so it goes back
you have to find the balance.
Goes back to our point about a half hour ago about really people don't want to know what we need to speak in uncertainty and likelihood and possibilities and
no absolutes. No absolutes.
You can't deal with absolutes. That's like watching the World Series and go, is Altuve going to hit this or not on every pitch?
Yeah.
The probability is he's probably not, because that's how baseball works. But you've watched enough and he's a good hitter. Maybe he will this pitch. And so you sit on every pitch and in edge of your seat. if you had to analyze every single time that ball left the pitcher's hand, you'd have to have an assortment of possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's not a whole lot different than what the three of us have to try to get up and message to people.
Yeah. And plus you got a huge countywide area. So as you know, different things happen in different areas, and you got to deal with that too. So
yeah, we deal with that too. We'll put out, briefing for the, Bryan College Station area, and everybody gets it. And then everyone starts thinking we're going to get a hard freeze. Like, no, this is only for the Brazos Valley.
Yeah.
That's why it says Brazos Valley. Everyone else can relax.
Well, nobody knows where the Brazos Valley is.
I know.
I know. A lot of people
Aggies
don't even know what county they live in.
Yeah.
They don't even know where they're at on a map.
Well, I-10 seems to be a pretty popular dividing line for weather events.
It's just easy.
It's
for
just
us.
easy to message,
right?
It's
N45. Yeah, no, it's like it makes a nice little X right in the middle of the city. So
yeah, it's easy to message. East of 45 and south of I-10. Yeah, people get that. If you're in Baytown, you understand that.
But then I have friends that live in Spring Valley, like a quarter mile from I-10, going,
does that mean
I'm north
me?
of I-10.
Does that mean me?
If you're in Katy, what does that mean? I'm near I-10. I don't know what that means. Am I north or south? I don't know.
What does it mean in Sugarland? I don't know. I'm like, you don't know where you live, do you? You have no clue that Sugarland's
Are you in a floodplain?
Yeah. I mean, no.
Yeah.
I get these questions all the time. Well, what about Brittle?
So Scott, are y'all doing weather alerts now too? Weather alert days?
Of course. We're doing possible alert days.
Oh,
those are great.
Light alert
alerts
days?
are red. Possible alert days are great.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's moving toward red, Jeff.
Possible. That's like a watch. That's what we would call a watch. It's
an
possible.
alert day watch.
But that's the thing. It's not. We just see, why do we need alert days when we have a watch and warning system already?
I told you why.
Go ahead. Tell me again.
Why. Because they want to go before the Weather Service.
Yeah.
They want to say certain people, certain
or other
TV
stations,
whatever. They want to, and exactly.
They want to be first.
They want to be first. I'm putting something official sort of out.
Yeah.
So I'm because if you listen, we're declaring.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That
like they have the power
here
to
at Channel X, we have declared Tuesday an alert day for the following reasons. And
on Thursday before.
There's also, a flood thing going around too sometimes.
What's a flood thing?
Yeah, it's a stage 1 alert or something like that.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. but that's not a government entity.
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't do stage alerts on floods.
Yeah. I personally like the government package. I mean, it's been around for a long time. I think it works pretty well.
And I think you can go back to the cone. That's why some of this stuff doesn't go away, because people have a comfort level understanding what a tornado watch kind of means. They've seen them, especially if you've been in the weather world for a while. You kind of get what a tornado watch means. You kind of get what what the cone means. You understand it. You comprehend it. We get into new stuff, then people, SPC, they expanded from like 3 to 5, and then people get all up in arms about the wording of marginal or enhanced. And, what do these terms mean? It's like, well, they researched all this stuff, but they couldn't get rid of the labels. They couldn't go to a 1 to 5 scale. Everybody wanted to keep the labels, so they had to call it something. And so if we start changing stuff, it freaks everyone out.
Hypothetical question. If you interviewed 10 people and said, what's the difference between a tornado watch and a tornado warning? How many would get it right?
3 or 4.
Yeah, probably.
I was thinking more like 2 or 3. And they've been around forever, right?
God, I'm optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
For once.
Basically since like the 50s.
Yeah. And, and we're still not there.
Now some of that's where you live. Now, if you ask somebody in Oklahoma, they're going to understand that better than somebody that's, say, in Michigan.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
Well, you can apply any watch or warning metric to their like flood watch, flood warning here,
right.
Hurricane watch, hurricane warnings, winter storm watch, winter storm warning to their local area
climatology,
and see what they come up with. I mean, I don't know. People might get it more than you think. I don't know.
Well, the hurricane watch and warning is, I mean, you can tie that to an action, especially if you live along the coast. If it's a hurricane watch, what should I be doing? If it's a hurricane warning, what should I be doing? There's definitely a criteria of action items tied to those particular watches and warnings. Tornado warning, tornado warning in effect for Harris County. Well, Harris County is what, 60 miles from corner to corner?
Yeah,
well, we did away with
the
county-based warnings in the early 2000s.
It's
polygons
based.
To try to mitigate that at very point.
I actually
but when you're hearing it, say you're in the kitchen, you hear it on the TV or you hear it on your weather radio or something like that, you're not actually, I guess people are looking at their phones. They can see the polygons and see the lines and the time of each town it's going to get and all that, the timeline and all that. But if you don't have that, you're okay. What do I do?
I think a better question is if you ask somebody the difference between an advisory and a warning, an advisory or a watch. I almost guarantee you more people sometimes think an advisory is worse than a warning.
Really?
Yeah. The advisory thing is more confusing to people than the watch warning.
Yeah, and we're doing away with advisories just to some degree. Yeah, a lot of our
I need my advisories, Evans.
Why is that, Evans? Why are you doing away with advisories?
Just for the confusion. I mean, it was a big deal in the post-Atlanta. I talked about that Atlanta snowstorm. I don't know, it was a 2012 that flash snow apocalypse where they had a winter storm watch out, and then they went to a heavy or winter storm advisory, and people thought that was a downgrade.
Well, wasn't it? I would agree with that too.
Yeah, but that's the perception. But from the actual forecast amounts and everything, it was actually a higher confidence type of thing. Messaging is a whole different story. It's so difficult with the messaging side, and trying to find a label to drive action, a label to identify things. Again, between the three of us, we'll hear a term and think something different. We may have different risk assessment. There's a lot of states now are making decisions off of the day 2 SPC outlooks and not even waiting on the watches. They're canceling on, a SIG tour on a day 2 and not even waiting for the day 1s into the watches. There used to be situations where tornado watch would go out and hospitals would move patients and things. So there are things that happen because people have built plans. Jeff deals with that too. A lot of these emergency managers, they have to have plans. So they want to have triggers for their plans. And so we come up with they build these triggers off of our weather service products. Well, if we start changing it all, it screws up all these triggers.
Yeah.
And we hear about it. And so that's why it's difficult for the government to do a lot of changes, because a lot of stuff's already been written in. This is what we do if we get a whatever watch. This is the plan. This is the next steps that we take.
Yep.
It's an evolving thing.
Yep.
It'll keep evolving. And then we come up with new terms, and then it takes years to catch on.
Exactly. Well, after the January
like alert days, they're going to be very popular 30 years from now, Jeff.
No.
After the January 2023 tornado, now suddenly there's been talk about we need to have different tornado action plans based off of this SPC outlook or this from the Weather Service. And we've been working with some counties and some other community decision makers and coming up with a tornado decision plan that's accurate, that's not overdoing it.
That's interesting.
I mean, we worked on one for Harris County after that, and I mean, we have an activation based on SPC outlook and the probability of certain. I think
like
it's
an enhanced risk and a SIG
I think it has to be an enhanced risk, day 1 enhanced risk, and a 10%. I think it's a 10% tornado,
right?
Or maybe it's 5. I don't remember, but.
But there's some thresholds that are in the plan.
Right. And we actually met it this year, I think, one time. And we didn't activate because it was the time we had absolutely nothing happen. And the weather alert day. I'm pretty sure we talked about it. It was a weather alert day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about it.
Why are you pointing your thumb at me?
And I remember Evans and I talking because you and I were texting with Tim Heller. We were texting back and forth. This is so overblown. I said nothing's gonna happen. Well, we got and I'm like, and Evans and I are like, it's 58-degree dew point outside.
Yeah, it was not.
It was
a little overdone on the forecast.
But that was
the time there was no cape or something.
Yeah,
like
but
that?
SPC still had an enhanced out, which then they dropped to slight.
Yep.
And then we got some showers,
and we were barely in enhanced, but they actually dropped the enhanced box down a little bit. I think a few hours. Prior to
we talked. We as an office had spoke with SPC and everything, and they gave our assessment. We talked back and forth, and the mutual assessment was, let's drop this. Let's get down to a basic flight, and it's going to be east, and it was. Louisiana got lit up that night.
I remember it was the championship day. It was the day of the game
of the Washington and
at NRG, the championship, the football championship, college
Michigan and Washington.
Yes.
And there was actually some talk from SPC about, well, it's a high profile thing going on in Houston, so we want to make sure we have that covered.
Scare them. Let's scare them. Let's go enhanced. Hell, let's go moderate. Just for Harris County.
Don't let them go to the game. Do not let them go to the game.
But it's in fairness, it's hard to separate some things out. I mean, I remember working an SPC case on the 4th of July and debating a severe thunderstorm watch up for Chicago. And I know on 4th of July, everybody's at the freaking lakeshore. Everybody's outside. So my thresholds for a risk for a severe thunderstorm watch were a little bit lower. So I went ahead and issued that severe thunderstorm watch. And there were some strong thunderstorms. I don't think we got a lot of severe. But that stuff, it does play into your mind. Like, the people are more at risk. They're all outside. It's freaking 4th of July.
Well, it's the other thought is if I don't do it and something happens,
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just part of our business, though, right?
Yeah. But I would err probably on the side of issuing, especially with all those people outside. I mean, just anything just to bring up the awareness for lightning,
Well, that's how we looked at it. But by definition, do you expect 1 inch hail and 58 mile an hour winds or not?
Yeah.
And those parameters were fairly low, but half-inch hail, a lot of lightning, heavy rain were pretty certain. So we put the box out.
Would that have been also a possibility for a special weather statement type situation?
Those are yes, but they don't have the same reach. Mm-hmm. So if we put a special weather statement out, it doesn't go on people's phones. It doesn't turn colors on TVs, and
nobody reads the special weather statement.
No, it's
not that special.
It's just it's a product.
Is it a CYA statement? Sometimes we joke about
like an alert day.
We're getting rid of advisories, but we're keeping the special weather statement.
He's still upset about the advisory. Would Chicago been an advisory type situation?
Well, advisory. Let's move on.
No.
Let's talk about cook-off. Let's talk about rodeo cook-off because it looks miserably hot.
I want your take on advisory.
And humid.
And we're going up on an hour, by the way.
And it's disgusting out there when it's hot and humid. I just don't understand why it has to be hot and humid at cook-off.
I think
because those tents.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So if you if you're listening and you have extra tickets to your tent for barbecue week,
we will be out there.
Think about your local meteorologist.
Look, you have to cook-off is a mental,
smartest thing said on this
and
podcast.
Physical preparation of the body. Okay.
Yes,
it's 3 nights of.
It's always cold at a cook-off.
Well, it's not going to be cold this year. It's going to be like a dew point of 65 and 80.
Yeah,
it's going to be absolutely horrible.
You're going to sweat. You're going to sweat a little bit.
Yeah, because the tents are like ovens.
Jeans and boots and a t-shirt and bring a little sweat rag with you.
I might have to go with shorts and flip-flops this year.
Wow.
I don't care.
Yeah. Well, that's unusual for barbecue weather.
I think 2 years ago we had that. I think it was pretty
It was
humid.
cold. It was cold a couple years when a couple years ago we went Evans and it was cold. We were walking around cold. We couldn't feel our fingers.
Oh yeah, plenty of those. Plenty of those.
Yeah.
Well, I'd rather have it that
So
way.
this is a warm one. When does it start? I don't even know.
Next Thursday, the
Oh.
22nd.
That's coming up.
So we will be out there. By all means, stop us. Invite us in. We love barbecue
Love to come into your tent.
and cocktails.
Well, now I've got pressure to get this podcast out in time.
And somebody listen to it between now and then.
Sorry, Shelby. Yeah.
So
yeah,
so I'm looking at the
little.
the little NBA box and whiskers for Thursday the 22nd. It's a high temperature of 77. Yeah, it's a little sticky.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's springtime. Springtime. High dew points, high temperatures. Nothing. No rain or anything like that.
Sure,
it's a little too out there, but no, that it's not not going to be a washout by any means. Doesn't look like.
Okay.
But there could be
Yeah,
some light
we got
showers.
rain Friday, right?
It'll be sea fog.
Yeah, with those kind of dew points, we might this time of year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be sea fog.
So this is not this Thursday. I'm talking about a week from Thursday.
Right, the 22nd. Yeah.
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 That's a big deal. Then rodeo.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of people outside, out of rodeo. A lot of people.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
All right.
And Valentine's tomorrow.
That was exciting.
All right, guys. Any last thoughts?
No. Just remember your local meteorologist when you want to be generous.
Jeff Evans, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. I'm sorry we put you through 70% of it anyway.
No, it's all good.
Never coming back.
Yeah, please come back. You're our first returning guest, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, first.
No one else agreed.
Yeah.
I don't know what this says about me.
I can't believe we didn't even start this podcast off with sports. And did anybody watch any football this weekend?
All of it. All of it.
Pretty good, huh?
Also
I mean,
watch
it's a little slow at
basketball
first.
and golf because that's
Oh,
the
gosh.
only thing on now.
So did y'all give an
And,
assessment of the Usher halftime show? We should have gotten into that. It was a little too low energy for me. I thought expect a little more.
You thought you needed more. You needed more flashing lights, huh?
Yeah, I need some more energy.
No, I don't know what I was doing during the Usher concert, but
You
I'm
were
sure it was
you were
good.
there.
Yeah, I know.
He went to the Super Bowl.
He had Puppy
No, I
Bowl
wasn't.
on.
No,
he was in
I
his
wasn't.
room. He was
No,
in his hotel
yeah.
room watching a Puppy Bowl.
Whatever. You go.
I was not at the Super Bowl.
You go to Vegas on Super Bowl weekend in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
You went to the Super Bowl.
No, I wasn't at the Super
We watched the
I
Nickelodeon broadcast,
Yeah,
the SpongeBob broadcast, the Super Bowl.
yeah, just sitting in the room watching the Super Bowl. No, we were in the casino, but no, I wasn't at the game. But I'm sure it was a fine show that Usher put on.
You didn't see it?
No,
Oh. I thought the game was great. The second half was great. The first half was
This-
boring.
The first half was boring. Second half
I
was
thought
good. Overtime
it
was good.
Yeah, I thought it was good. And I'm not surprised at the outcome.
No, although San Francisco, had they known the overtime rules, might have made some different decisions. That's kind of on them.
Did they not know the rules?
No,
I mean, how do you not know the rules?
they didn't. Well, the coaches, I think, knew the rules of players because normal overtime, if you score the touchdown in overtime, you win the game.
Right, yeah.
In the playoffs, both doesn't matter. Both teams get a possession.
Right, both teams, yeah.
So they should have not taken the ball first.
Well,
You should kick
I
that
missed
off
that.
because then you go for it on fourth down. So instead of kicking that field goal, they might have gone for it because they would have had to have.
well, I thought I had a nice payout because I got bought tickets for a tie at the end of each quarter. And I'm thinking, wow, fourth quarter, 19-19. That was like the highest odds.
Man,
I'm
it
thinking,
paid your trip, huh?
Yeah, I'm like thinking this is great. Well, no,
Oh,
it wasn't the tie of the total score. It was the tie of that specific quarter, which the Chiefs won 9-6. I should have read the fine print.
it wasn't the overall score. It's how the scoring went in each
No,
quarter.
but it should have been the overall score because I think that's in 58 Super Bowls they've had overtime 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
Twice.
I think
Yeah,
twice.
Second time. The first time was
Yeah.
here.
Should have been a huge pay. Oh, really?
I think it was that game with the Falcons and the Patriots here in Houston. Remember
yeah, when
they were down
when
23.
halftime
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Okay, so it's happened recently then.
Yeah, that's it.
Kind of like floodplains. It's not every.
They're all new. They're all recent. Never had them before until just now.
All right, guys.
All right. Now that I tied it back to weather, I think we can go now. Jeff Evans, thanks a bunch.
Thanks,
See
guys.
you next time. All right.
See
Thanks,
ya.
bud. All right. Bye.